Weddings have a way of exposing people. Strip away the flowers, the pastel linen, the string quartet playing off-key in the corner, and what you get is raw human theater. Nerves, pressure, secrets that sweat through silk and lace. And if you're lucky or cursed, you get to watch the truth crack through someone's perfect little mask like a champagne glass dropped on tile. That's exactly what I saw at Angela's wedding. Angela, my wife's younger sister, the baby of the family, spoiled since birth, coddled into adulthood, and somehow still treated like the second coming of Cinderella despite throwing fits if her latte wasn't frothed just right. The same Angela who was marrying a man she didn't deserve, Matthew. Kind, calculated, quietly lethal. I'd always respected Matthew. He had that subtle predator's calm. The type of man who doesn't raise his voice because he doesn't need to. He already knows how and when to strike. He and we understood each other, which is probably why he did what he did that day. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's rewind. The morning of the wedding, my wife, Rebecca, stormed into the kitchen already in a full panic. Hair in rollers, eyes wild, phone clutched like a detonator. "You promised you'd talk to the oncology center today," she hissed, slamming the fridge shut without even grabbing anything. "We need to move your next session." I stared at her like she'd just asked me to reschedule my own funeral to make room for a manicure. "For what?" I asked flatly. Her lips curled, like I was the problem here. "The honeymoon, Nathan. We need to take care of their dogs, their plants, their goddamn everything. They need support. Angela's been so stressed." "Right," I muttered, setting down my coffee. "And my cancer? That's just an inconvenience." She didn't answer at first, just narrowed her eyes and said the words I'll never forget. "Cancel your cancer treatment for her honeymoon." The air went dead. Not still dead, like it had been sucked out of the room and replaced with something colder. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flip the table. I just stared at her, the woman I'd spent 10 years married to, and felt nothing but a hollow, growing clarity. I knew she was selfish. I knew she'd gotten comfortable with my silence. What I didn't realize until that moment was that she had stopped seeing me as a person a long time ago. Maybe never really had. "I'm not canceling anything," I said. "Let the princess hire a dog sitter." Rebecca didn't respond. She just scoffed and walked away like I was being petty. Like choosing my own life over her sister's Instagram-worthy vacation was some kind of betrayal. And so, we went to the wedding. The church was ridiculous, marble floors, imported flowers, 2 violinists flown in from Prague. All smoke and mirrors. Angela walked down the aisle in a dress that probably cost more than my surgery. And Matthew stood there calm, collected, watching her like a man reading a book he'd already memorized. Everything was going according to script. Until the vows. Angela had just finished hers. Rebecca was beaming in the front pew, already imagining her face tagged in hundreds of perfect photos. Then Matthew looked at the crowd. His eyes stopped on me for half a second. And he began. "Before I say anything to Angela, there's something you all should know." The entire church tensed. The photographer stopped clicking. The reverend shifted nervously. Matthew turned to me. And then, to the crowd. "This man, Nathan, isn't just Rebecca's husband. He's the man who saved my life. 2 years ago, we met in an experimental trial program. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for him. And yet, Rebecca, his wife, just tried to convince him to skip his cancer treatment for this honeymoon." Silence. Absolute, deafening silence. Angela blinked, then swayed. And just before anyone could catch her, she fainted. Flat out. Crashed like a puppet with its strings cut. Rebecca gasped. Someone screamed. The violinist stopped mid-note. I just stood there. Still. Calm. I didn't need to say a word. The truth was already doing the work. They say the silence after a bomb is louder than the blast itself. Maybe that's why, after Angela collapsed and hit the marble like a rag doll, the quiet that followed felt so deafening. For a few seconds, no one moved. It was like someone had unplugged the whole ceremony, cut the power to the illusion everyone had bought into. And then chaos erupted. Rebecca shrieked and rushed forward, her heels clacking like gunfire. The maid of honor fumbled to catch Angela's bouquet, which had bounced unceremoniously across the aisle like a rubber chicken. Matthew didn't flinch. He just stood there, hands folded in front of him, watching the dominoes fall like he had planned it, because he had. The officiant looked like he wanted to run. A few of the guests gasped, real dramatic gasps, like they'd just witnessed a high society crime. And one woman in the third pew flat out cried. I recognized her as Rebecca's cousin, The same one who once lectured me at a barbecue about how I wasn't ambitious enough to marry into their family. I gave her a nice long look. Angela started to come to, muttering something about needing water, mascara smearing down her face like war paint. It wasn't the kind of faint you could pass off as excitement or nerves. No, this was the kind of collapse that happens when your entire fantasy implodes mid-vow. Rebecca tried to play it off, of course. She's just overwhelmed, she insisted, cradling Angela like she was some fragile porcelain heirloom. It's been such a stressful week. The planning, the guests, her diet. But the crowd wasn't listening anymore. They were staring. At her. At me. At Matthew. He turned back to the Reverend. I won't be continuing the ceremony, he said, calm as a surgeon. Angela and I will not be getting married today. Or ever. The room imploded again. Angela wailed, lunged, tried to grab him, but he stepped back like she was nothing more than static. This man, Matthew said, pointing to me, has been lied to, manipulated, mistreated. And while I didn't plan to reveal this here, I realized something. He looked at me again, eyes steady, voice like flint. A man like that deserves truth. And you, he turned to Angela, to Rebecca, to the stunned crowd. You all deserve to see what truth looks like. That's when he pulled out the envelope. Not just any envelope. Thick, cream-colored, embossed with the mark of the hospital we both had attended for clinical trials. The trial that saved Matthew's life. The same one that gave me a fighting chance. The same one Rebecca wanted me to skip. For a honeymoon. He handed it to me wordlessly. I opened it. Inside was a photo. Not a medical document. Not a bill. A photo. From 2 years ago. It was a picture of me. Hooked up to and for. Gaunt. Pale. Looking like death's understudy. But smiling. Matthew stood behind me in that photo, giving a thumbs up. I remembered that day. We had both made it through a hellish week of side effects and setbacks. He'd told me, we're going to make it through this, brother. You'll see. Rebecca had never visited me during that stay. Not once. She told everyone she had, of course. Even brought me a card once, signed, but never handed over. I found it months later, in the trunk of her car, right next to a pair of heels that weren't hers and receipts from hotels I'd never been to. And now all those pieces were snapping into place. I looked up from the photo. Rebecca was shaking. Angela was sobbing on the floor, surrounded by scattered petals and broken expectations. I took a step forward. Not to speak. Not to make a scene. Just to be seen. To make them feel the silence. The judgment. The weight of everything they'd buried under smiles and silk. And for the first time in 10 years, Rebecca didn't know what to say. Because the mask was gone. The guests were watching. The story they'd spun had unraveled. All I had to do was let it. The wedding ended not with a bang, but with the slow, awkward shuffle of expensive shoes over marble. People left like they were retreating from a crime scene. No rice. No cheers. Just murmurs, sideways glances, and the palpable discomfort of a ruined fairy tale. Angela was carted off to the bridal suite by her mother and a hotel staffer, holding a glass of water she never drank. Her makeup had melted into a tragic mask. If she'd had any dignity left, it was probably drying in a pile of crumpled tissues on the floor. Rebecca. Well, she followed me out into the hallway like a dog trailing its owner after getting caught chewing the couch. Nathan, please, she started, voice low, syrupy, fake. This is all a huge misunderstanding. I turned, slowly. You really want to do this now? After telling me to cancel chemo, so you could play house-sitter for your sister's fantasy marriage. She flinched. You're twisting it. No. I'm remembering it exactly the way it happened. Word for word. You weren't even sorry. You were annoyed I didn't roll over and say sure. Honey, dying can wait. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I walked past her. She followed. He ambushed us, she said sharply. Matthew planned that. He's vindictive. You don't see that. I stopped walking. He's vindictive, I repeated slowly. Right. That's the takeaway for you here. Not that your husband is fighting for his life, while you're fighting for someone else's weekend in the Hamptons. Rebecca's face twisted, not guilt, not remorse, just exposure. Like a child caught in a lie that's been recorded. What do you want me to say? She snapped. That I'm a monster? Fine. I've been tired, Nathan. Tired of this house, tired of being the nursemaid, tired of watching you wither away while I pretend everything's fine. That was it. The real her. Finally clawing its way to the surface. I stared at her, really stared, this woman I married. The woman who used to bring me soup in bed and read Hemingway aloud like she was auditioning for a part in our story. But the woman in front of me now was no actress. She was the director of her own carefully scripted show, and I was just an extra who'd overstayed his usefulness. You don't have to pretend anymore, I said coldly. I'm giving you an out. She blinked. What? We're done. But the house. I own it. The accounts. I moved them. Her breath caught. She hadn't expected me to be prepared. That was her mistake. Like so many others, she took my quiet as weakness, my patience as passivity. But in reality, I had seen the writing on the wall long before Matthew's mic drop at the altar. I just hadn't decided when or how I was going to flip the script. Until now. I walked away from her that afternoon. Not out of pain. Out of strategy. The media picked up the story before sunset. Some anonymous guest had filmed the whole thing on their phone, Matthew's speech, Angela's collapse, the chaos. It hit a wedding blog first. Then TikTok. Then the vultures circled. Runaway groom delivers public takedown at lavish ceremony. Hashtag sister scandal goes viral after bride faints at altar. The chemo husband. Internet rallies around man told to cancel cancer treatment for sister-in-law's honeymoon. I didn't leak anything. I didn't have to. The internet did what it does best. Pick sides, pick flesh, and pick apart facades like buzzards stripping meat off a sun-dried lie. Matthew disappeared from public view, but he sent me a text later that night. You okay? I replied. Better than ever. I was. Because I didn't just get out, I exposed them. Without yelling. Without threats. Just truth. Truth, like acid, eating through the false perfection they tried so hard to polish. Rebecca tried damage control, of course. But no Instagram caption or tearful story post could cover up what she'd said. What she'd done. By Monday, her business was tanking. Clients canceled. Sponsorships dropped. Her inbox was full of venom disguised as feedback. Angela? Still hiding out somewhere in Connecticut. Probably crying into a glass of expensive regret. And me? I booked my next cancer treatment. Showed up early. Sat in that chair with my book and my headphones, ready to fight again, not just for my life. But for my life. The one I deserved. The one she tried to write me out of. It didn't take long for the world to start turning on Rebecca. By Tuesday, her social media was a graveyard of silent comment sections and locked accounts. No girls who hustle posts. No boss babe energy reels. Just a quiet collapse behind curated selfies, and that's when I knew she was scrambling. Reputation was her oxygen. Validation was her god. And now she was suffocating in a church of her own design, the pews empty, the choir gone mute. The first email came that afternoon. The subject line? We need to talk. Please. I didn't open it. Then came the texts. Rebecca, you have no idea how much you've hurt me. Rebecca, I was under so much pressure. Rebecca, Angela's fragile. I was trying to protect her. Protect her? The same sister who mocked me for being too tired to go to brunch after chemo? The same one who thought she could weaponize a wedding to boost her influencer status? No, this wasn't protection. It was politics. Family brand preservation. And Rebecca had always played dirty. Then came the escalation, of course it did. Thursday morning. Knock at my door. I opened it, and there she was. No makeup. Designer coat draped over one arm like a trophy she no longer deserved to wear. Sunglasses hiding what I assumed were bloodshot eyes. I didn't invite her in. I'm sorry, she said. Simple. Hollow. No, you're exposed, I corrected. There's a difference. She blinked. That hit landed. I know what I said was cruel, she whispered. But I wasn't thinking straight. I panicked. Angela was spiraling, and I thought if she left for her honeymoon happy, maybe things would calm down now. So your solution was to ask your husband to delay cancer treatment. I didn't mean it literally, she shot back, voice rising. I was just overwhelmed. You said it. Word for word. And I wasn't asking you to build me a legacy. I was asking you to stand beside me through mine. Silence. I can fix this, she said finally, almost desperate. We can fix this. I'll go online. I'll do an interview. I'll explain. Explain what? I asked, leaning against the doorframe. That your husband, the man who was burning through his white blood cells 1 week at a time, was being too dramatic about his life-threatening illness? Her lips tightened. She was used to emotional leverage, not logic. And right now, she was holding a dead match. I loved you, she said softly. No tears. No trembling lip. Just words shaped for sympathy. No, I said. I steady. You loved what I gave you. Stability. Applause. The illusion that you were better than you really are. That's what you married. She stepped forward. Nathan. I stepped back and closed the door. I heard her breath hitch on the other side, but I didn't open it again. 2 days later, I got the letter. Not an email, not a text. A letter. Handwritten. Delivered by courier. Inside was a page torn from a journal. Hers. A confession, maybe. Or a last chess move. She wrote about how scared she was when I was diagnosed. How it made her feel trapped in a story that wasn't about her. How she started to resent being the background character in a drama where she couldn't control the ending. But the last line? You were always stronger than me. That's what made me hate you in the end. There it was. The truth. Stripped bare. No hashtags. No filters. Just the ugly heart of her envy finally confessing itself. I folded the letter. And I burned it. That weekend, I did something I hadn't done in a year. I took a walk by the lake. No destination. No timeline. Just cold air, clean water, and the hum of my pulse. Still here. Still fighting. I watched a couple push a stroller along the gravel path. An older man reading a paperback in the sun. Life. Unstaged. Unscripted. Real. And it hit me. I've been living in a performance for years. Playing the doting husband while Rebecca chased validation like a drug. I was just the set piece. The lighting. The applause. But not anymore. Now, I was the story. If you ever want to understand a woman like Rebecca, you have to look at the soil she grew from. And in her case, the roots were planted by a mother who'd spent her entire life pruning appearances like hedges, trim the scandal, fertilize the family name, and burn anything that didn't bloom in her image. Enter Margot Westlake, my former mother-in-law, a woman who could wear a smile like a knife. The kind of presence that made caterers stammer and lawyers second-guess their briefs. She once told me, during a Thanksgiving toast, you may not have come from money, Nathan, but you certainly clean up like you did. That was the closest thing to a compliment I ever got from her. So when her letter arrived on heavy cream stock with her embossed monogram at the top, I wasn't surprised. The contents? That was another story. Nathan. I'll be brief. I'm deeply saddened by what happened at Angela's wedding. I had hoped for a resolution behind closed doors, but that's no longer possible. Since you've chosen to make this spectacle public, you've put our family's reputation at risk. However, I'm willing to propose a solution. A quiet divorce. Discreet financial terms. No further media involvement. And in return, you'll receive a generous settlement and complete ownership of the townhouse. You walk away, clean and calm, and we repair what's left of our dignity. She signed it like a queen issuing a pardon. Margot A. Westlake. You have to admire the gall. The woman's daughter tells her cancer-stricken husband to postpone his treatment for a honeymoon, and I'm the one tarnishing their legacy? I didn't respond immediately. Not because I was unsure, but because moves like that deserve time to simmer before you send your reply. And trust me, I sent one. But first, I made a phone call. You remember Matthew, Angela's ex-fiancé? The one who dropped truth like a piano on the wedding? Turns out he wasn't just good with timing, he was good with paperwork. I called him, laid it out, told him about Margot's little letter, her hush money and cashmere wrapping paper. He laughed, low and dry. Let me guess, Westlake reputation clause in paragraph 3? Paragraph 2, I said. He whistled. She's slipping. What he told me next was the real kicker. He'd already started forwarding key information to a quiet little legal firm upstate. Not tabloids. Not TikTokers. Accountants. Turns out the Westlakes weren't just good at staging galas. They were magicians with trust funds. Misreported assets. Phantom charities. Even a donation made in my name to a foundation that didn't exist. Rebecca's little drama was just the surface tension. The family had been wading in deeper waters for a while. And now? Now the water was about to boil. I finally responded to Margot. Typed. Plain paper. No signature flourish. Margot. I won't be accepting your offer. I don't want your hush money or your apology wrapped in veiled threats. What I want is very simple. The truth. If that ruins your legacy, so be it. You should have thought about that before you raised someone who thought a man's illness was less important than a photo op. I'm not the problem, Margot. I'm just the proof. I mailed it the next day. No courier. Just a regular envelope dropped into a blue metal mailbox by my oncology center. Felt poetic, honestly. Later that week, my attorney called. Said Rebecca had filed preliminary divorce papers through her own representation. Half-hearted and sloppy. She's stalling, he said. trying to regain ground. Let her try, I said. I've already won. Because she thought I was broken. She thought cancer made me weak. That kindness made me soft. That silence made me blind. What she forgot is that a man doesn't stop being dangerous just because he doesn't shout. Some of us sharpen our revenge slowly. With clarity, with patience, and with facts. Rebecca's next move was as predictable as it was pathetic. She went public. Not viral like before. Not the firestorm Matthew lit at the altar. No, this was more curated. A soft-filtered Instagram video. Sunset background. Minimal makeup. Hair tied back to say, look, I'm vulnerable now. Her voice was low, thoughtful, practiced. Hi everyone. I've taken some time to reflect. I know the past few weeks have been painful. I made mistakes. I was overwhelmed. Watching someone you love battle a life-threatening illness is, well, it does things to your head and heart. I didn't always know how to cope, but I never stopped loving Nathan. Cue the quiver in her voice. He's hurting. I'm hurting. And I just hope, whatever happens, we can both find peace. She ended it with a whisper of a smile, the kind you're supposed to feel sorry for. The comment section lit up, split right down the middle. You're so brave to speak out. Everyone makes mistakes. Stay strong. Girl, no. He had cancer. Sit down. You tried to cancel chemo. You can't rehab that. But sympathy started trickling in. And that's when I knew. It was time to drain the last bit of her armor. She wanted peace. She should have thought of that before she turned my illness into a scheduling conflict. I released nothing public. I didn't need a video. I didn't need a platform. All I did was forward one email. One. To a journalist. Local. Sharp. One of those investigative types with a nose for hypocrisy and a deep hatred of PR fluff. The email? A thread between Rebecca and her sister, Angela. It included the exact message she sent 2 weeks before the wedding. If he's still doing chemo that week, we'll have to cancel everything. You need to talk to Matthew. We cannot have Nathan flaking out and ruining your timeline. Timeline. That's what my life became to her, a timeline inconvenience. The journalist didn't embellish, didn't add spin, just presented the facts, the quotes, the context. Titled the article, When Illness Meets Influence, the Chemo Husband and the Wedding That Went Viral. It dropped on a Thursday. By Friday, Rebecca's video had been clipped, memed, and torn to shreds. People weren't buying it anymore. Sympathy shriveled into scorn. Angela deleted her accounts altogether. Rebecca tried to backpedal, posting healing quotes and Bible verses that read more like panic than faith. And me? I didn't say a word. Didn't comment. Didn't repost. I let the silence speak louder than her spin. But here's the part she really didn't see coming. Her employer did. Turns out, when you work in PR and marketing, and the biggest headline about you involves gaslighting a man during cancer treatment, clients notice. My lawyer called. You're not going to believe this, he said. She's offering a full concession. You get the house, the accounts. She just wants out. Wants her maiden name back. I leaned back in my chair, the sun creeping in through the blinds. Coffee warm in my hand. You know what that tells me? I said. What? She's not sorry. She's just bleeding out and looking for a bandage. He chuckled. So? You want to push for more? No, I said. I want this done clean. Quiet. She can take her name. I'll take back my peace. He paused. You're not even going to ask for spousal support. I smiled. She's going to pay for this the rest of her life, and not in dollars. Let her try to rebuild her image from the rubble. Later that night, I got a message. From someone unexpected. Angela. One sentence. You didn't deserve any of it. And I'm sorry. I didn't reply. Some apologies are too little. Some are too late. And some just don't matter anymore. Divorces don't end with a signature. They end with a silence. A certain kind of silence. Like a house you once lived in, gutted and cold, stripped of furniture, laughter, identity. A silence not of peace, but of completion. That's where I was now. The papers were signed. The accounts transferred. The townhouse mine. I walked through it that night with bare feet. No music, no phone in my hand. Just me and the creak of wood that hadn't known stillness in years. Her scent was gone. So were her shoes by the door, the passive-aggressive throw pillows, the color-coded planner that mapped out brunches like military campaigns. I opened the closet. Empty hangers. Dead space. A little dust. Freedom. The story online faded. That's the thing about viral moments. They burn hot, then vanish. People moved on to the next scandal, the next takedown, the next hashtag storm. But for Rebecca, it wasn't over. Her name was digital ash now, burned into forums and screenshots. People remembered. Screens remembered. Clients remembered. And maybe worst of all, she remembered. I didn't gloat. I didn't post victory quotes or take some revenge selfie on a yacht. I just lived. Started seeing a therapist. Got my strength back. Grew my hair out. Stopped wearing the ties she bought because they made me look serious. Started wearing flannel again, like I used to before she reshaped me into someone boardroom-friendly. I returned to the gym, not to sculpt revenge, just to feel strong again, present, capable. And slowly, the fatigue started to fade. Not just from the chemo, from her. Because she wasn't just a person, I realized. She was a fog that seeped into everything I did, every choice, every word I second-guessed. She trained me to anticipate her disapproval like some Pavlovian experiment. And now, I was finally clear. A month later, I ran into someone I hadn't seen since before the diagnosis. Her name was Mara. We met at a coffee shop, both waiting on orders that were apparently lost in the caffeine ether. She made some sarcastic remark about how they spelled her name wrong on purpose. I laughed. Genuinely. We started talking. Light. Easy. No weight in the conversation. No expectations. Just words for the sake of saying them. And that felt new. Foreign. Free. She didn't ask about the viral video, or the headlines, or how I was holding up. She asked about what I liked, what books I read, what music made me speed when it played in the car, what food I secretly hated but pretended to enjoy to keep the peace. That last one made me pause. Lobster, I said. She grinned. Same. Rebecca used to order it for both of us. Said it was refined. You ever crave a chili dog instead? Every damn time. We didn't exchange numbers. We just laughed. And then she handed me her receipt. Call me if you ever feel like not being refined. That night, I looked at her number, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilt or fear or shame. I felt like a man, not a patient, not a cautionary tale, not a walking headline, just a man. It had been weeks since I last said her name out loud. Rebecca. It tasted like old smoke and plastic, burnt, synthetic, and useless. I wasn't haunted by her, not exactly. I'd exorcise that demon with silence and receipts. But every once in a while, something small would catch me. A scent in the grocery aisle. A certain shade of lipstick on a billboard. A cold tone in a stranger's voice. And then, like clockwork, I'd remember, she's not dead. She's just not in my life anymore. But ghosts don't need bodies to make noise. It started with an email. Not from her. From her lawyer. Mr. Blackwell. Per our client's request, we are writing to inform you of pending action regarding statements made online that our client believes constitute defamation and intentional harm to her professional standing. I didn't even finish it. I sent it straight to my attorney, who responded like a man swatting flies. Typical scare tactic, he said. She's fishing. She's broke, embarrassed, and clawing for some kind of leverage. She's got nothing, I said. Exactly, he replied. Let her file. We'll countersue. I nodded. But something about it gnawed at me, not fear, not regret. Disgust. She wasn't trying to reclaim her reputation. She was trying to rewrite history. Make me the villain. The manipulator. The guy who weaponized his cancer to gain sympathy. I didn't go looking for revenge. But now? Now she was asking for a round two. I don't fight dirty. But I do fight smart. I made 3 calls. One to my lawyer. One to a journalist. And one to Matthew. Yes, that Matthew. Angela's almost husband. The guy with the spine of steel and the patience of a monk. He picked up on the second ring. Thought you might call, he said. She's trying to bury me. She'll bury herself. You just have to hand her the shovel. We met the next day. Small diner. Cheap coffee. No eyes on us. Just 2 men with receipts, memories, and more than enough ammunition to turn a whisper campaign into an execution. You see, what Rebecca didn't realize was that while she was crafting tearful apologies and fragile victim narratives, I had documents, screenshots, timelines, even a recorded conversation she'd accidentally called me during a meeting with her PR fixer, forgetting I was still in her recent contacts. I heard the whole thing. We can spin it, play up the stress, talk about the trauma. People forgive women faster than men, especially when they cry on camera. But what about the treatment thing? Call it a miscommunication. Or grief. No one fact checks a sob story. Yeah, I had that. Saved. Backed up. Triple encrypted. I hadn't used it. But if she wanted war? Fine. I called her lawyer directly. Didn't even wait for my own to mediate. This is Nathan Blackwell, I said. Tell your client the next time she sends a letter like that, I'll respond with a link to an audio file and a headline that ends her professional future. Permanently. I don't want a settlement. I don't want an apology. I want her to disappear from my narrative like she disappeared from my hospital room. There was a long pause. Then, quietly, understood. The lawsuit never materialized. She vanished again. Deleted her online presence for the second time. But this time, no post about self-care or resetting boundaries. Just silence. The kind of silence that comes after the mirror shatters. 1 week later, I called Mara. She didn't pick up, but I left a message. Hey, it's me. I don't want to talk about my past anymore. I think I finally said everything that needed to be said. I'm ready to ask someone about their life. About what kind of music they speed to. About what food they hate. I think I'm finally ready to listen. Call me back. Or don't. Either way, thanks for reminding me I exist. You know what they never tell you about betrayal? It doesn't always come at you with screaming and slamming doors. Sometimes, it's quiet. Subtle. Years in the making. Like mold behind the drywall, by the time you smell it, it's already in your lungs. That was what Matthew dropped on me in part 9. We were sitting on a park bench, of all places. Cold wind cutting across the lake. Ducks paddling by like they weren't sitting in the aftermath of a nuclear personal war. He passed me a folder. Thick. Heavy. Yellowed tabs. What's this? I asked. History, he said. Your marriage's Rael Foundation. I opened it. Inside were printed emails. Dated. Logged. Timestamped. All predating my diagnosis. Hell, some even predated our wedding. Conversations between Rebecca and Angela. I don't know how long I can keep pretending. He's safe. Stable. But I don't want stable forever. You're young. You don't settle for beige just because it's reliable. He's not a husband. He's a step tool to something better. My breath left my body. I found them, Matthew said, when I was going through Angela's laptop after the wedding fallout. She never deleted anything. Thought she was untouchable. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the calculation. They didn't fall out of love with me. They never loved me. I was a placeholder. A character in their life play, hired for the role of provider, and then discarded once the next act needed a new cast. Why didn't you show me this earlier? I asked. He took a sip of coffee. Because back then, you needed to fight for your survival. Not your pride. That hit. He was right. Back then I was still bleeding physically, emotionally. But now? Now I wasn't bleeding. I was watching. And what I saw was clear. Rebecca and Angela had built their lives like wedding cakes, layered, sweet on the surface, rotten underneath. And the cherry on top? There was one more email. Sent to Margot, their mother. He won't last long. Once it spreads, the timeline says 12 to 18 months. We just need to hold out until then. Then I can start fresh, no baggage. They were talking about my cancer. Like it was a weather forecast. Like I was a temporary inconvenience. I folded the folder shut. Stared out over the lake. You still want to leak this? Matthew asked. I shook my head. No, I said. Let them live with the silence. Let them wonder what I'll do. Let them lose sleep replaying the games they thought they won. Because the best revenge isn't exposure. It's endurance. That night, Mara called. Her voice was casual. Warm. I got your message, she said. That was honest. I meant it. Then come have dinner with me. I laughed. What's on the menu? Regret, she teased. And chili dogs. Bring your worst shirt. And just like that, something changed. No grand rebirth. No phoenix metaphor. Just a simple shift. From surviving to living. It was raining when she came back. Because of course it was. Some endings write themselves with all the subtlety of a cliché, like the sky just knows a ghost is at the door. I was cooking. Not frozen pizza, not a takeout box eaten over the sink, real cooking. Garlic sizzling in the pan. Chili dogs in the oven because Mara had joked that I should elevate the experience. She was coming over. Nothing serious. No labels. Just life. And then came the knock. 3 sharp raps. No hesitation. I opened the door. Rebecca. Hair wet. Coat clinging to her like regret. No umbrella. No apology in her eyes. Just desperation. The last move in a chess game she thought was already over. I need to talk to you, she said. No, I said simply, stepping back just enough to let the rain stay between us. You owe me 5 minutes. I owe you nothing. She blinked at that. The rain streaked her mascara in a way that might have earned sympathy once. But not anymore. Not after everything. Not after that email. Please, she whispered. Not a command. Not a performance. A plea. I let her in. Not for her. For me. I wanted to hear what excuse she'd try to build from the ashes. She didn't sit. She hovered near the kitchen island, hands trembling just slightly, trying to look composed while I stirred the onions like I wasn't watching her from the corner of my eye. You've made me into a villain, she said. No, you did that yourself. I just stopped covering for you. Rebecca looked around, eyes landing on the 2 plates I'd set out. You're seeing someone. Yep. Is it serious? Nope. Silence. You really hate me that much? I turned off the stove. Hate you? No. That would imply I still care enough to feel something. You don't get my hate, Rebecca. You get my indifference. She winced. I was scared. I stared at her. You weren't scared when you were planning your sister's wedding timeline around my chemo. You weren't scared when you were emailing your family about when I'd probably die. You weren't scared. You were strategizing. That's not true. It's in writing. She crumbled into the bar stool like a puppet with its strings cut. I didn't think you'd ever read those. I know, I said. That's why you wrote them. She put her head in her hands. I ruined everything. Finally. Truth. Yeah, I said. You did. But here's the thing. This isn't your story anymore. I'm not your lesson, Rebecca. I'm not your trauma. I'm just the guy you lost. And I'm okay with that. She looked up, eyes glassy. I just thought, maybe you could forgive me someday. No. It was quiet. Firm. Honest. No, Rebecca. I don't forgive people who treat me like an expiration date. I'm not bitter. I'm just done. You don't get to rewrite who you were just because you regret who you became. I walked her to the door. She didn't argue. Didn't try to hug me. Didn't cry. She just nodded. One sharp dip of the head. Like a businesswoman leaving a deal she couldn't close. And then she was gone. Just like that. The last knock. The final ghost. Gone. That night, Mara came over. We didn't talk about Rebecca. We laughed over chili dogs and spilled wine and some movie we half-watched, half-roasted. I looked over at her once, mid-laugh, and for a second I thought, she's real. Not perfect. Not curated. Not strategic. Real. And I realized something. I didn't need revenge anymore. Didn't need justice. Didn't need to win. I just needed the right silence. The kind that comes after you've told your whole story, and there's nothing left but peace. A month passed. Maybe more. I stopped counting. My life no longer revolved around doctor's appointments or excuses. The silence in my house wasn't hollow. It was earned. The kind of quiet you don't question. The kind you protect. Mara was coming around more. Not as a girlfriend. Not yet. Just present. And that was enough. We laughed more than we kissed. We shared food more than we shared trauma. And that too was enough. Until the letter came. No return address. Just my name in shaky cursive. I almost threw it out. God knows I'd burned enough letters in the past year to light a city block. But something about the way this one was folded, uneven, almost nervous, made me pause. I opened it. One page. From Angela. Yeah, her. Nathan, if you're reading this, it means I finally got the courage to send it. I know you have no reason to hear from me. No obligation to read past this line. But I've spent every day since that wedding replaying the truth in my head, and I can't move forward without giving you what I should have given you years ago. The truth. All of it. I sat down. Rebecca didn't fall apart when you got sick. She wasn't overwhelmed. She wasn't lost. She was planning her exit. We all knew. Me, Mom, even Matthew. She said it outright, that she didn't want to waste her prime years caring for someone who might not make it. She called you a placeholder. She said you were convenient, steady, and that she'd never expected to stay married after 35. She had a timeline. You weren't in it. My stomach turned, but not from shock. From confirmation. A cold kind of relief. The final puzzle piece I already knew existed. I should have told you when I found out. But I didn't want to be the one to break you. And that's my failure, Nathan. Not Rebecca's. Not my mother's. Mine. I let you live in the lie because it was easier than watching the fallout. I was wrong. You didn't break. You survived. I know you'll never forgive me. I wouldn't either. But I want you to know, Matthew didn't ruin the wedding. You didn't. I did. By staying quiet for too long. And for what it's worth, I'm glad she lost you. She never deserved to keep you. Angela. I folded the letter. Didn't burn it. Didn't cry. Didn't even get angry. I just sat with it. Because here's the thing about the truth. It doesn't heal you. It hardens you in the right places. It doesn't patch the cracks. It reinforces them. Make sure they don't break again. Angela was right. I had survived. Not just the cancer. Not just the betrayal. I'd survived them. Later that night, Mara noticed the letter on the table. Everything okay? She asked. Yeah, I said, pouring us both a drink. Just another echo from a version of me that doesn't live here anymore. She nodded like she understood. Like she'd burned letters before, too. And then we toasted. To endings. Matthew called me on a Wednesday. He never calls midweek unless something's wrong. Or right in a very dark, poetic way. The kind of right that comes wrapped in cold justice. You got a minute? He asked. For you? Always. He didn't waste time. Angela's mother, the ice queen herself, Margot Westlake, she's dying. I didn't flinch. Didn't fake sympathy. Death doesn't make a person decent. Margot had lived her life like a hostile takeover. And now she was being taken over by something she couldn't out-network or blackmail. But that's not why I called. Matthew continued. It's about her will. I leaned forward. What about it? He chuckled, but it wasn't warm. She left you something. What? Her attorney reached out to me since I was listed as a secondary contact in case Rebecca was, quote, emotionally compromised. He paused for effect. They're requesting your presence. You've been named. That word sat in my chest like a weight. Margot. That woman had looked at me like I was the hired help for 10 years. The outsider who didn't match the silver in her bloodline. She'd rather kiss a parking meter than speak my name without gritting her teeth. And now she'd name me in her will? I don't trust it, I said. Neither do I, he replied. But that's what makes it interesting. The meeting was held in one of those offices that smelled like dust and failed legacies. Leather chairs, water in crystal glasses, and Margot's attorney, buttoned up, tight-lipped, the human version of a paper cut. Rebecca was there. Of course. Black dress, designer sunglasses, morning in style. She didn't look at me when I walked in. Just sipped her water like it had answers at the bottom. The reading started. It was predictable at first. Charitable donations. Jewelry passed down to Angela. A condo in Naples to some distant cousin. And then, to Nathan Blackwell, my former son-in-law. Even the air held its breath. I leave a safety deposit box. Location, undisclosed. Contents, private. That was it. No explanation. No justification. Just a mystery sealed in steel. I glanced at Rebecca. She was frozen. Not shocked. Terrified. I knew that look. I'd seen it once before, when I caught her lying about working late and found a receipt for a dinner for two in a city she hadn't told me she visited. That same split-second glitch. That flicker of, oh God, he's going to find out. After the reading, I walked out. She followed. Nathan, whatever's in that box, it's none of your business. That sealed it. Oh, I said, it's absolutely my business now. 2 days later, I got the location. The box was in a private bank downtown. The kind of place where no one says hello and the vault smells like old secrets. Inside was one item. A manila envelope. Thick. Unlabeled. I opened it in my car. Inside, documents. Handwritten notes. Legal correspondence. Bank statements. At first, it didn't make sense. But slowly, it unraveled. Margot had rewritten her will 6 months before her death. Why? Because she discovered something. Something Rebecca and Angela had worked hard to bury. They had siphoned money from Margot's trust. Over $200,000, routed through shell nonprofits and marketing expenses tied to Rebecca's PR business. Rebecca had embezzled from her own mother, and Angela helped forge the tax paperwork. But the kicker? Margot hadn't gone to the police. She'd done something far worse. She'd documented everything, and then left it to me. I sat in my car for a long time, the envelope in my lap, heartbeat even. Rebecca had played a long game. So had I. But Margot? Margot played for blood. And in her final act, she chose me as the executioner. There are 2 kinds of power in this world. One is loud. Headlines. Scandals. Public disgrace. The other? It's quiet. A slow bleed. The sound of boots behind you in a dark hallway. Not running, just walking. Steady. Unavoidable. That's what I held now. That envelope from Margot wasn't just evidence. It was leverage. Proof of Rebecca and Angela's financial betrayal. Signed and sealed by the woman who birthed them and then died knowing full well who they really were. I had every bank statement. Every doctored form. Every signature they swore they never signed. I didn't need revenge. I had control. Matthew met me at a bar. Not our usual quiet spot. This one was louder, raw, filled with people trying to forget things. I like that. No pressure to pretend you're doing well. Just be present. Honest. He took a sip of his bourbon and said, "So what's the play?" I slid the envelope across the table. He flipped through it, eyebrows rising with each page. When he hit the forged signature line, Angela's handwriting mimicking Margot's down to the curve of the A, he let out a slow, low whistle. "You could bury them," he said. I nodded. "But you won't." I didn't reply. Because he was right. I had options. Report them. Leak it. Drop it in the lap of every client, tax auditor, and trust fund watchdog from here to Palm Beach. But here's the thing. People like Rebecca don't fear consequence. They fear uncertainty. An arrest? A lawsuit? That gives them a script. A plan. They lawyer up, spin the PR wheel, play victim. But never knowing when the sword will fall? That's torture. That's justice. I sent one email. Subject line, Margot's gift. Body. I know what you did. I have everything. You don't know when, or if, I'll use it. Sleep tight. Attached was a photo. One single page from the evidence pile. Not the worst one. Not enough to convict. Just enough to prove I wasn't bluffing. 15 minutes later, my phone rang. Blocked number. I didn't answer. It rang again. And again. Then a text. "Rebecca, please. Don't do this. You don't understand." She was cruel. We had no choice. I stared at the message. Then deleted it. No reply. Ever. And just like that, the power shifted. I didn't need a court. I didn't need a crowd. I had truth. They had fear. And for once, they were the ones tiptoeing through the silence, wondering what I'd do next. Let them rot in that. That night, Mara and I walked through the city, just before midnight. The streets were quiet. That hushed kind of alive that only exists between the drunks and the joggers. She slipped her arm through mine. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Actually, yeah." She looked up at me. "You don't talk about her much anymore." "I don't think about her much anymore." She smiled. "That's the difference, isn't it? Between healing and pretending." I nodded. "I stopped bleeding," I said. "Now I'm just rebuilding the skin." It started with a knock. Not the panicked hammer of guilt. Not the desperate clawing of a broken woman at my door. This one was measured. Intentional. 3 slow raps. I opened it and came face to face with my brother, Eli. I hadn't seen him in 6 years. Not since the fallout. Not since he stood in the back of my wedding like a shadow in a suit, arms crossed, eyes hollow. He didn't speak then. Didn't toast. Didn't dance. He just watched. Now, he looked older. Sharper around the eyes. Beard thicker. Shoulders broader. A man who'd clearly been carrying something. "Nate," he said. "Eli, you gonna let me in?" I did. Not because I trusted him, but because sometimes ghosts show up not to haunt you, but to confess. We sat in the kitchen. Coffee between us. He didn't touch his. "I heard about the divorce," he said. "Through who? Does it matter?" "It does when you show up after 6 years of silence." He nodded. "Fair enough. I owe you more than this visit," he said. "You owe me the truth." He leaned forward. And just like that, the dam broke. Turns out, Rebecca hadn't just lied to me. She'd gone to Eli. Before the wedding, she told him I wasn't strong enough for a marriage. That I was too focused on sentiment and safety. She said I was going to waste my life being cautious. That I was boring her word. And Eli? He didn't push back. He didn't defend me. He listened. And walked away. Not because he believed her. Because he believed me, believed I'd change. Grow into the man she wanted. He thought if he stayed quiet, maybe the marriage would force me to evolve into someone less like myself. "I was wrong," he said. "She didn't want you to evolve. She wanted to erase you." That hit. Because that's what she did. Bit by bit. Told me which shirts were too childish. Which books were beneath me. Which hobbies were a waste of time. She didn't just cheat on me. She remodeled me. And Eli? He watched from a distance, waiting for me to either bloom or break. I broke. And I rebuilt. Without him. "I came to say sorry," Eli said. "Not just for staying away, but for believing her version of you. For letting her define who you were becoming." I stared at him. "You weren't the only one," I said. "I let her define me, too." We sat in silence. Real silence. The kind that doesn't need to be filled. Then he reached into his coat. Pulled out a box. "Found this in Mom's attic," he said. Figured it should be yours. It was wood. Scratched. Old. Inside? Photos. Letters. A ticket stub from a road trip we took in college. A small, rusted lighter with our initials etched into the side, E+N. Time capsules of the man I was before I let myself be whittled down. I picked up a photo. Me. Laughing. Wild hair. Arms around Eli. Back when life didn't feel so scripted. He stood. I'm proud of you, he said. You never said that before. I never meant it before. He left. No drama. No breakdown. Just the quiet grace of a man who showed up. Late, but honest. Later, Mara came over. She found the photo in my hand. That you? She asked. Used to be. She looked at it. Then at me. I think he's still in there. I smiled. He is. He's just got better taste in women now. She rolled her eyes, but she blushed. And that felt real. There's a certain peace that comes after the dust settles. You start walking through your own home without flinching at every memory. You stop checking the mirror for the man she molded. You breathe differently, like you're inhaling your own oxygen again, not the recycled air of a relationship that smothered you politely. That's where I was. Until the last betrayal knocked the wind out of me, not with volume, but with clarity. It didn't come in a letter. It didn't come from Rebecca. It came from me. I was cleaning out the last drawer in the guest room, the one she never let me touch. Always claimed it was just junk from her college days. Photos, makeup samples, magazines I was told not to throw out because they were sentimental. I found a flash drive in the bottom of a floral box. Small. Labeled in Sharpie. Archive. I don't know what made me plug it in. Curiosity? Spite? That quiet itch in the back of my mind whispering. She never stopped hiding things. Not even when you were dying. The drive opened instantly. Inside? Folders. Dozens. Photos. Screenshots. And videos. My stomach tightened. They weren't explicit. Nothing criminal. But they were personal. Footage of me. Videos I never knew she took. Me, sleeping in the hospital. Me, after treatment, sitting slumped in a chair, gaunt and pale. Me trying to smile through pain. But she wasn't documenting out of love. The title said it all. Stage 3 Wife Life LOL. Chemo Boy Chronicles. Reality versus romance. These weren't private memories. These were content ideas. I opened one folder marked Pitches. Inside? Emails to her old PR clients. Brands. Speaking gigs. I'm thinking about a series centered on caretaking and silent suffering. Really raw stuff. I have footage I can shape into a journey from pain to purpose arc. I'm the backbone in my marriage. While he fades, I hold it all together. It's powerful. Inspirational. We could position it around women's mental health. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't a wife in grief. This was a vulture with a vision board. She was prepping a brand deal off my decline, waiting to package my chemo like some gritty Netflix docu-series where she was the silent hero. And the worst part? These were dated before the wedding. I sat there for a long time. Not angry. Not shocked. Just empty. Because betrayal by action is one thing. But betrayal by intention? That cuts deeper. She was never beside me. She was above me, camera in hand, narrative in mind. I was the character. She was the writer. And the ending she wanted? My exit. That night, I burned the drive. Not because I needed justice. Because I didn't want her anywhere near my peace. Let the truth live in me now, not in her reels, not in her pitches, not in her performance. She didn't get to own my pain. Later, I told Mara. She didn't say much. Just took my hand. Held it. No, I'm sorry. No, that's awful. Just presence. Exactly what I never had when I needed it most.